The late 1960s. A powder keg of racial tension. Black militant groups demanding equality clashed with a system seemingly built to oppress. Law enforcement, often the iron fist of this system, met defiance with force. The streets ran red with the blood of revolutionaries and the innocent caught in the crossfire. In this maelstrom of unrest, George Jackson emerged, a figure already hardened by years of imprisonment. The Black Panther Party, a beacon of militant resistance, faced constant scrutiny and violence. When a young Panther leader was gunned down, the authorities labeled it a justified killing. Jackson, however, saw a conspiracy, a state-sanctioned execution. His voice, raw and filled with righteous anger, rose above the din. He challenged the official narrative, pointed a finger at the system he believed responsible. This defiance, this unwavering defense of his people, came at a cost. Whispers of Jackson's involvement in the killing, accusations of assassination, began to circulate. The lines between truth and propaganda blurred. One thing was clear: George Jackson had become a symbol of resistance, a lightning rod for the gathering storm. George Jackson knew the sting of injustice firsthand. Born into a world that seemed to conspire against him, he faced systemic racism and economic hardship from a young age. Imprisoned at the age of 18 on flimsy robbery charges, he found himself swallowed by the belly of the beast, California's notorious San Quentin State Prison. The charges were dubious, the trial a mere formality, and the sentence a life-altering blow. Inside those walls, he witnessed the brutal reality of the system he railed against. The prison was a microcosm of the larger societal injustices, a place where the marginalized were further oppressed. He saw guards mete out violence against black inmates with impunity, their actions fueled by racism and unchecked power. The brutality was relentless, a daily reminder of the dehumanizing force of institutionalized racism. The assassination of the young Panther leader resonated deeply within San Quentin. It was a stark reminder of the lengths to which the system would go to maintain its grip on power. Jackson, already a respected figure among the black inmates, saw it as a declaration of war. He understood that their struggle was not just for survival, but for dignity and justice. He refused to let the fallen Panther be forgotten, his voice echoing through the cell blocks, demanding justice, demanding accountability. His words were a clarion call, a rallying cry for those who had been silenced for too long. The authorities, however, saw only a threat. To them, Jackson was a symbol of defiance, a figure who could inspire rebellion and disrupt the status quo. They labeled him a rabble-rouser, an agitator, determined to silence his dissent. Solitary confinement, intimidation, and violence were their tools to break his spirit. But Jackson's words had ignited a fire. His message of resistance and empowerment resonated deeply with the inmates, many of whom had felt powerless for so long. He spoke of revolution, of self-defense against a system designed to crush them. His ideas were radical, but they offered a glimmer of hope in a place where hope was scarce. He galvanized his fellow inmates, urging them to recognize their shared oppression. He taught them that unity was their strength, that together they could challenge the system that sought to destroy them. The Black Guerrilla Family, a prison gang born out of necessity and fueled by anger, found its leader in George Jackson. Under his guidance, they became more than just a gang. They became a movement. They were ready to fight back. With Jackson at the helm, they were no longer just prisoners. They were soldiers in a war for justice and equality. San Quentin became a tinderbox, a place where the slightest spark could ignite a devastating blaze. The air crackled with tension, every interaction between guards and black inmates a potential spark. The guards, wary and on edge, watched the inmates with suspicion, their eyes scanning for any sign of rebellion. Then, the unthinkable happened. A white guard, notorious for his brutality and feared by many, was found dead at the bottom of a stairwell. His lifeless body, twisted and broken, sent shockwaves through the prison. The official report spoke of an accident, a tragic fall that ended in death. But the inmates knew better. They whispered among themselves, sharing tales of what really happened. Rumors spread like wildfire, tales of revenge, of a guard thrown to his death by those he had tormented. The whispers grew louder, the tension more palpable. Fingers pointed at George Jackson and his black guerrilla family, a group known for their defiance and willingness to fight back against oppression. The prison erupted in violence. Black inmates, armed with makeshift weapons crafted from whatever they could find, clashed with guards in a chaotic frenzy. The air was thick with the sounds of battle, the cries of the wounded and the shouts of the enraged. The White Brotherhood, a white supremacist prison gang, saw an opportunity to assert their dominance. They moved in to crush their rivals, to show their strength and control. The prison yard became a battleground, stained with the blood of inmates and guards alike. The violence was relentless, a brutal testament to the deep-seated hatred and division within the prison walls. The guards, their authority challenged and their control slipping, responded with brutal force. Batons swung, riot gear clashed, and the fight for dominance raged on. Tear gas choked the air, making it hard to breathe while the sharp crack of gunfire echoed through the cell blocks. The prison had become a war zone, a place of fear and chaos. The riot raged for days, a terrifying testament to the hatred simmering beneath the surface of American society. Smoke and debris filled the air, the aftermath of the violence leaving a scar on the prison and its inhabitants. When the dust finally settled, the body count told a grim story. Lives were lost, and the prison was forever changed. San Quentin, once a symbol of confinement and order, had transformed into a symbol of racial violence and societal breakdown. The walls, now marked with graffiti and damage, stood as a stark reminder of the chaos that had unfolded within. Outside the prison walls, George Jackson's case had become a rallying cry. The streets were filled with people demanding justice, their voices echoing through the city, a chorus of defiance against a system they saw as corrupt and unjust. His brother Jonathan, a charismatic and fiery speaker, dedicated himself to securing George's release. He traveled from city to city, rallying support, his speeches igniting a fire in the hearts of those who listened. He saw the injustice of his brother's imprisonment, the way the system had chewed him up and spit him out. Jonathan believed that George was a victim of a society that feared and oppressed young black men, a society that used the prison system as a tool of control. Jonathan organized protests, spoke at rallies, his voice filled with the same righteous anger that fueled his brother. He became a beacon of hope for many, a symbol of resistance against an oppressive system. His words were powerful, his conviction unshakable. But Jonathan's fight for justice would be tragically cut short. Despite his efforts, the system remained unyielding, and the weight of his brother's plight bore heavily on him. On August 7, 1970, he entered a Marin County courtroom, armed and desperate. It was a last-ditch effort, a plan born out of desperation and a deep sense of injustice. His goal to take hostages and bargain for his brother's freedom. He hoped that by taking such drastic measures, he could force the system to listen, to see the humanity in his brother's plight. The ensuing chaos, a desperate act of a brother pushed to the brink, ended in a hail of gunfire. The courtroom became a battleground, the air thick with tension and fear. Jonathan, along with 3 other people, lay dead, their blood staining the courtroom floor. The scene was a grim testament to the lengths he was willing to go for his brother. The news of Jonathan's death sent shockwaves through the nation. Headlines blared the tragic news, and people across the country were left to grapple with the implications of his actions. For many, he became a martyr, a symbol of a system that left young black men with no choice but to resort to violence. His death was seen as a tragic consequence of a society that refused to change. For others, he was a criminal, his actions inexcusable. The nation was divided, with heated debates about the morality of his actions and the justice of his cause. But for George Jackson, locked away in San Quentin, the news was a devastating blow. The loss of his brother was a personal tragedy, a wound that cut deep into his soul. He had lost a brother, a comrade, a source of unwavering support. Jonathan had been his lifeline, his connection to the outside world, and now that connection was severed. His grief fueled his rage, hardening his resolve to dismantle the system he believed responsible. George's determination grew stronger, his commitment to the cause unbreakable. He vowed to continue the fight, to honor his brother's memory by seeking justice, no matter the cost.